Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Locked, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor. This week, I'm joined by Beardless Trev. Let's get that hashtag trending on Twitter.
I was beardless like my entire existence. It was just like a 3-week span. So let's not even start that.
Okay. Anyways, we're going to start it off with not really a full-blown topic, but something that just recently got leaked. That I don't really know if it's supposed to be public knowledge or not. But when Paige Pierce was on Smashbox, she talked about basically like the excitement. She was being excited that disc golf is going to be back on ESPN this year.
Yeah, she was like saying how she's not sure if the ESPN thing is going to happen was like her words. So yeah. She was alluding to the Pro Tour being on ESPN again this year.
Yeah, which is interesting because to me that means that the Pro Tour Championship must have went pretty well if they're considering bringing it back.
True. Also, zero chance that she was supposed to release that information.
Yeah, because that information is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, like the Pro Tour would definitely want to be the one to bring
leak
that.
Yeah. But you know, there seems to be a chance that we might see some more disc golf on ESPN, which I'm pretty excited for.
Well, the question is, are they going to do it like they did before, or are they going to?
I think they're definitely going to stick with. I definitely think they're going to stick with the like post-produced type thing versus the live, because live would be a much larger commitment from them.
Yeah, because the time slots, weekends, like noon.
Well, not even just the time slots, but like. They would send their own crew out to be doing live.
Right.
Well, because right now we're probably not doing live the same way you would do live for cable TV. I could be wrong there, but I would imagine there's a big jump to get from how we're currently producing to how we would have to produce.
When I was working in college athletics at school and like we had a basketball game that was televised on like ESPN's main network, I mean they parked 2 massive trailer trucks like right next to the stadium to run the broadcast. So yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, like
they're not doing it remote. That's for darn sure.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're a ways away from disc golf being big enough on their radar that they're committing like a full staff to show up to run these disc golf events. Yeah, that's not happening yet. So it's definitely going to be post-produced if it happens. And there's no reason to believe it is or isn't going to happen, other than
we know there's a chance.
We know that it's apparently been on the table because Paige brought it up. But speaking of kind of like changing the sport and where it's going, I thought it'd be interesting since there's not a lot to talk about this week. We talked about the All-Star Games or All-Star Weekend. I don't know what to call it.
All-Star Weekend, I think.
The All-Star Weekend that's happening this Saturday and Sunday. We talked about that last week, so we're not going to bring it back up. No changes have been made. That's public knowledge. Yet one thing I did find interesting was there seemed to be a little like behind the scene rumor that like everyone that they announced is going to be there wasn't confirmed to be there. And so it'll be interesting to see if all the players actually show up or if they have to like do a last minute sub. I heard that there were some players that were out there just because they wanted a chance at being that sub. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with that. No, again, no real reason to believe that players aren't going to show up for it, but there is a possibility that could happen. It'd be interesting to see.
It would surprise me that they wouldn't announce it this close to it starting. I guess maybe...
Unless they're just like, well, we really hope this guy shows up Saturday.
Yeah, or like... I mean, surely they would know, right? Or like maybe they're worried about losing pay-per-view. But like, I don't...
No,
they know the big dogs are there. Like, they know their young guns and their Paul and like their Paige are there. So like, they're not really worried about that.
And I mean, that's pretty much the whole field, so... I mean, it's the All-Star Weekend.
Yeah.
Like, there's literally only 16 people. It's the big dogs and no one else.
Yeah.
But with one thing we want to do is kind of come up with this different topic that we can kind of talk through for a little bit, which is, I guess you could call it a game, but not really. Basically, I have 3 different levels here, and I'm going to ask you I'll give my answers too. One thing that you would keep the same, and one thing that you would like to see change within this realm. So the first one is within the PDGA. What is something that you would keep the same that you really like what the PDGA is doing? And if you were in complete charge of the PDGA, what is one thing that you would change?
Right. So as far as what I would keep the same, the thing I like most about the PDGA is how easy it is to run an event. I think like it's super easy to get a tournament up and running, approved, ready to go. It's easy to join them. That is something that I like about the PDGA and something that I would keep. And then what I would change is the rating system. The rating system is quite broken. I don't think it's been updated. I think they've been using the same system for a long time. I mean, have they ever changed it?
No, this is the only rating system. It came during the Climo era.
Yeah.
Is when ratings first started.
I would change the rating system. I don't have like some master genius plan of what I think it should be, but I know there's a lot of flaws to it. And I also think that I think the rating system is so much more relevant to amateur players that I would either make it one of two things. Either A, as soon as you're a professional status player, you no longer have a rating, or maybe like it's there, like your rating exists in the system, but like it's not visible. Like nobody sees your rating because like it doesn't matter. Or B, once you get above 1,000 rated, you're just an 1,000 rated player.
That's what I would do. So if
and like you could even be like 1050, but it just says 1,000, but like you're actually 1050 in the system and you have that many points to lose before you go under 1,000, but like you just see 1,000 plus.
That's what I was going to say. So I think we're too far in to fully switch up the rating system. It'd be very hard to fully switch it to be a course-based rating system instead of a player-based.
I agree.
I think that's where the issue results in is it just depends on the field that shows up that day as to how the ratings are going to go. But I think the ratings would be fine if you got to 1,000 rated and it's 1,000 plus is what your name shows as.
Yeah, there's just no point.
Well, because in golf, pretty much, from what I understand, from what I've heard people talking about golf and handicaps, which people always say, like, why do you keep using that as a reference? Because if you read the rating system, our ratings are literally trying to be our version of golf's handicap system. That's what it was set up for. That's what the creator has talked about it being.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. So I'm always going to refer to the thing it's supposed to be as a reference point. I never have heard of players talking about being better than a scratch golfer. I know you can.
Yeah.
But once you're that good, it's like, oh, yeah, he's a scratch golfer.
Yeah. You'll never hear like people say like, oh, yeah, he's a +3 handicap, which would be like 3 better than scratch. Like, They might.
That'd be like a 1030 rated player.
If you really ask them, like you'd have to like, if you asked about a player who's really good, they would say like, oh yeah, they're scratch for sure. But like you'd have to like really dig like, well, what is his exact handicap for somebody to actually tell?
Yeah.
And like beyond, like once you're a professional ball golfer, especially a touring one, nobody knows what anybody's handicap is. They don't even have handicaps.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is like.
You have to get a handicap. You're not just assigned one for playing.
The handicap obviously would exist. Like if Rory McIlroy wanted to go get his handicap, he could.
Right.
And so in golf and disc golf, I think the biggest difference is the amount of emphasis we put on ratings.
Right. It's everything.
Yeah. Like when you talk about a player, like right now, I would say that, you can make an argument for a few different people, but you could put Paul, Ricky, Calvin, Eagle, any one of them is the number one best player in the world.
Right.
We just base it on ratings. So it's like, it's Ricky's the best player in the world.
Right.
Week in and week out, Ricky, he could win, but then so could Eagle, so could Calvin, so could Paul, so could even Chris Dickerson. Like, there's a lot of players that could fit into that. I think a good world ranking system that's updated throughout the year would be a lot more beneficial.
Right.
Because the issue with ratings, too, on the professional level is it's based on, like, your whole year. Performance, like over the last year, every round, if you go play a C tier, whatever, like Paul's rating dropped because he went and played a weekly league with I don't even think he has full bag.
He had 3 discs.
3 discs. He played a weekly league and it made him not be the number one rated player in the world.
Right.
Like, so obviously we shouldn't be deciding who's the best player in the world based on ratings, because then it's like, well, you better never play a local C tier.
Yeah.
You better never go play that weekly league. No, it would make more sense like. Whenever they're showing up to A tiers, pro tours, national tours, yada yada yada, they're points based, whatever. We have a world ranking system that updates, and then that's what everyone's deciding and not emphasizing. And I think a good way to implement that is you get to 1,000 rated, because 1,000 rated is still a big goal. Like you talk to any player who's like super serious, they want to get to 1,000 rated.
Yeah.
And then just make it 1,000 plus. So you got to 1,000 rated. Let's go. Now you're a scratch golfer. Everyone knows you're good. You're 1,000 plus rated. Boom.
Yeah.
My answers though were different than yours. I do agree with the rating system as being something to change. We've talked about that plenty on the podcast though. But the one thing I would keep the same that I think the PGA is doing a great job is their current sanctioning system for A, B, and C tiers. Similar to what you said, but I think I like it for a different reason. First off, I like it because it guarantees me as a player to have regional tournaments, and the way it's set up with like the distances between the different tiers, I don't have to worry about like when I'm as a TD running a B tier, there's no competition within the immediate area on that weekend because the PDGA has set it out to be like, if I'm running a B tier here, there's not going to be a B tier in Bedford, 30 minutes away. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about like super close competition. If it's a C tier, like sure, but C tiers are just like fun tournaments. They're not super serious.
Yeah.
And then an A tier is even more regionalized, and they have to approve them and all that stuff. So I like that because it makes sure they're all evenly spaced and players have tournaments. And it also is big for the TDs to be able to promote their event because a number of players are just going on searching what's near me this week and finding it, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing I would change is for them to give the Pro Tour a little bit more freedom. Because now what do I mean by that? Oh, and big part of it is to dissolve the national tour.
Yeah.
Get rid of the national tour, give the Pro Tour more freedom. This would allow them to, we talked about some last week, but like finding the players, which I don't think you should straight up fine them, but like if you can make offenses finable to add more professionalism to the tour. It would also allow the Pro Tour to have specific rules that apply only to Pro Tour events and stuff like that. And a big thing would be the registration process. With Ledgestone originally wanted to make it the MPO field 950 or above was the only players in it. And the PDGA said no because their cap is 900. You can do a tiered rating. You can't do that. This would open the door for that as well. So I think giving the Pro Tour a little bit more freedom and allowing them, because that's going to be crucial for tour cards and stuff like that in the future.
Yeah.
Working with them and giving them the full support and getting rid of the national tour. What getting rid of the national tour does, it puts all our eggs in the Pro Tour basket. It also allows the Pro Tour to have scheduling reign.
Yeah.
So basically the Pro Tour doesn't have to schedule around NTs and, play this like fancy game of what's going to be an NT, what's going to be a Pro Tour, yada, yada, yada. All our eggs are in one basket in the Pro Tour. That's kind of what I would change. Speaking of the Pro Tour, let's do the same thing for them. What would you change and what would you keep the same about the Pro Tour?
Yeah. So the Pro Tour, we obviously back them quite a bit because they're kind of the best product that disc golf has had yet as far as a tour is concerned. Obviously, we just talked about they're drawing the attention of ESPN, so they must be doing something right because the guys at ESPN know what they're talking about. And they've broadcasted so many different niche sports in their time. So I think one of the things that I like and I think is a little bit underrated with the Pro Tour is their graphics / presentation package for their coverage. So live coverage isn't perfect yet. It's getting good. It's not perfect. A lot of that has to do with limited budget constraints as far as not having the right amount of cameras. The camera switching and camera work is one thing that can improve. But they use a really good graphics package, really professional, and the way they run, I can tell they're on the right track as far as when they switch back and forth from the booth and when they decide to go to a storyline, they choose really good moments to go to a storyline and they have prepared graphics for those storylines. And when they do replays and stuff, I can tell they're on the right track. Like they know what they're doing. They're just kind of waiting for, I think, their budget and their manpower to catch up to them. And then some of it's just going to come with experience too. As they keep doing it, they're going to get better at it. I'm really looking forward to seeing, they've been hiring so many people this offseason, and they seem to have a lot of staff with them now. So I'm curious to see this season, if the product looks even better. But yeah, I think that's one thing that they've been doing really well. The thing I would change about the Pro Tour, and honestly, this kind of goes with what you were saying with the freedom, but I'm kind of spinning it back on the Pro Tour and saying, I think they need to put their foot down more. I think the Pro Tour needs to realize that now they have a monopoly as far as, unless somebody else enters the game, which they can't.
Even if someone did, what would they have?
Money. So,
but
the Pro Tour my thing is the Pro Tour, the only thing they should be scared about is somebody coming in with more money, because that's the only thing that would take the players away, because they have the product, and that's something they can't control. They can't control if somebody huge were to come in and be like let's say like a outdoor brand like Patagonia or North Face were like going to do their own disc golf tour and they have all this money,
which realistically they would just buy out the Pro Tour,
right?
In that
so
scenario, because they would want that headache.
Yeah, so they can't control if that were to happen. So there's nobody in that sense. Nobody can touch them. So my thing is the Pro Tour needs to wield that, and if they want freedom from the PDGA, they just need to go to the PDGA and be like, hey, you know, if we're going to continue collaborating, then like these are the things that we need. Like I think the Pro Tour needs to start, you know, wielding their power a little bit now that they have gotten to the point where all the pros know that they're playing the Pro Tour each season. Like there's no, well, we're going to split my time between these A tiers that I really like and these and this and that, and then play some of the Pro Tour. No, they all are going to play all the Pro Tour. That's where the attention is. That's where the money is. So yeah, I'd like to see them, you know, start acting a little bit more like, you know, you got to listen to us when it comes to what you want to do. And I know you're going to talk probably about the coverage, because that's one of the big ones. Yeah, but I'll let that kind of segue. I
was going to say, I think that's a great point in a lot of disc golf area is like, I think that certain companies and certain even players, a lot of players, they don't realize the amount of power they have. Mm-hmm. Like when you're a player to a company, like if you're a big enough player, you hold all the cards.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially and this is, I'm not calling these people out, but I'm just saying in this scenario, especially a Paul or a Ricky type player, or even a Paige type player, right, you hold all the cards. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like if we look at Paul with Discraft, like, yes, you know, you're going to want to keep your relationship with your sponsor good. And obviously, like, you know, there's a lot more that goes into it. But at the end of the day, Discraft needs Paul more than Paul needs Discraft. And the same goes with Ricky and Innova. When you're that big of a player, a move away from a company is a massive move. And I think it's the same type of thing with the Pro Tour. I would almost say that the PDGA needs the Pro Tour more than the other way around.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's something that the Pro Tour and some of these other even companies and players in the sport need to realize is the power actually sits with them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean you got to be a jerk about it and constantly like be like, right, oh, well, you know, you can't tell me nothing because blah, blah, blah. No, because as soon as that power comes, it'll go away. But you do have to realize like there's certain scenarios where you do have to put your foot down. You do have to say like, oh no, like this is as far as I'm willing to go down this trail. You know, you have to realize if the Pro Tour broke off, had all the same money, and broke away from the PDGA, I don't think that they're hurting that much. I don't think they're hurting at all.
No.
I think it's a good move for the future of the sport to stay with the PDGA because I think that'll help grow the PDGA and a lot of other stuff. But if tomorrow the Pro Tour were to announce, hey, we're breaking off, it might even generate more like stuff for the Pro Tour.
Right.
When it's all said and done. I think that's something that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. But as far as things that I would keep about the Pro Tour, I think the Disc Golf Network and what they're doing with it, their ideas with it, are really good. Mm-hmm. I like the whole idea of the Disc Golf Network. I think having a platform where pretty much all live disc golf is under one roof is a really good idea. I do think within that, they should probably make a little bit more of it free to the public. I wouldn't make the live rounds free. I would keep those behind the paywall. But I think if you go to the Disc Golf Network and like the player interviews and even like some of their podcasts and stuff like that, I would house them on the Disc Golf Network, but I'd make all that free. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to watch they always talk about like these post-round shows and stuff like that. I haven't watched them that much. I would even make that stuff free, the analysis stuff.
My only thing with that, like I get what you're saying, like just give them a little bit of free to even draw them into the network. Yeah. But I would argue more strongly in favor of that if it weren't for the fact that it's $5 a month. It's very cheap.
If you're a PDGA member. If you're not, it's $9 or $8 a month.
Even still, it's very inexpensive.
I agree, but that is still a barrier to entry.
It's true.
To me, and you also have to think of it this way, right? One of the podcasts that's on there is Hannah Macbeth's, the Party Podcast. If you're paying $5 a month, okay, for a video subscription thing, mm-hmm, you're paying for live disc golf.
Yeah.
So adding all these extra things to that subscription, it's nice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm not going on the Disc Golf Network, and this is nothing against Hannah or Christine. I'm not going on the Disc Golf Network and listening to the Party Podcast because that's not what I'm paying for. Right. So stuff like that, if you make that free to the wide audience, you know, where I can go onto the Disc Golf Network and maybe even watch it turn into a video thing, because, I mean, people love video podcasts, turn into a video thing. Now I can go on the Disc Golf Network, turn that on, and then you're already constantly on the disc golf network, and then it's like, oh well, $5 a month I get all this live disc golf and like all these exclusive interviews and stuff like that, almost treated like a Patreon type thing,
right,
where you give a little bit for free to get it. I don't think they're giving enough free. They're giving the live final round live for free, and that's it pretty much from as far as the disc golf network goes.
Not bad though.
That's not bad, but I'm just saying they have all these other content things that they're creating behind the paywall that people aren't paying specifically for that.
Right, they're paying for the live disc golf.
So that should be traffic drivers to the live disc golf in my head. You should be using all of that stuff to bring people in. Regardless, I like the idea of the disc golf network because I think that that's adding more money to the tour. It's adding more money to get a more professional live coverage and all of this stuff so that hopefully one day they can monetize it enough that it's not pay to watch anymore. I think that's kind of in my head where I would see it going. But one thing I would change is their media model. We've talked about this several times. And I want to first off, I think when I talk about stuff like this and when other people talk about this, it gets misconstrued as coming straight after post-produced coverage or post-produced companies. That's not true. Because if I was in Jomez's shoes or if I was in GK Pro's or Gatekeeper's shoes, I'd be doing the exact same thing. I wouldn't change a thing that I'm doing. Because why would I?
Yeah.
I can make literally millions off of this, right? Why would I change it if I'm Jomez? I wouldn't. I'm saying me personally. It's on the Pro Tour. This is the Pro Tour's coverage. This is the Pro Tour's product, and they're letting other people monetize it for them. It makes no sense. But I think eventually all of it should be under the Pro Tour. Right now, I don't think it's the time for that move yet. I think eventually you should be going to the Pro Tour to watch the Pro Tour coverage. And then what that allows is now all the views are in one spot. We can sell that to sponsors. We can monetize that out. And more importantly, the ad revenue and everything is going to the players, which we're going to talk about that later. There's another whole topic underneath that. But for right now, what I think I would change, so because I know you would have thoughts on that too. I'm just cutting off because we are going to get back to that with a whole different thing that's going on in the disc golf world right now. But one thing that I would change immediately is branding across the board of their media model. Because if you go to Jomez right now, and this isn't Jomez's fault, this isn't any of their faults, it's the Pro Tour's fault. This is a Pro Tour thing. If I go to Jomez, I don't really know it's a Pro Tour event. I see the Pro Tour branding on stuff on the course, but the graphics aren't branded. You know what I mean? There's not a consistent theme music introing it. There's not, like, Jomez is Jomez coverage, Central Coast is Central Coast coverage, GK Pro is GK Pro, and Gatekeeper is Gatekeeper.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're all different branded, different colors, different everything. There's nothing telling me you're watching the same event.
Right. Yeah.
So if I was the Pro Tour, what I would do right now is mandate everyone's using the same graphics package.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's all branded Pro Tour. If I'm going to Jomez, it's going to be obvious I'm watching a Pro Tour. And then the Jomez graphics for the Pro Tour are the exact same as Central Coast graphics for the Pro Tour. It's clear you're watching the same tournament. It's clear it's a Pro Tour event. I don't know why that's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, well, for companies like Jomez, they do have a lot more in their graphics package than like anybody else.
But I mean, but you can break it down to basically the Jomez model has the actual scorecards, the flyover, which every company has both of those, and then they have the slow mez and the no mez.
And follow flight.
And follow flight. Follow flight you can leave because Jomez, no other company's really doing that.
Yeah.
Slow mez is just replays. No mez, if you want to leave that, sure. You know what I mean?
I'm going to put a hot take out right now. I think follow flight's overrated.
I think it's sick. Overrated, maybe, but like...
Because, like, you're just showing me the flight of a disc that I just watched. Like, I don't think the line behind it...
I don't think it should be a replay. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it should be a live thing,
if it was live, I'd be like...
They've done that before.
That added to it.
USDGC Hole 3, they had... And they kept the previous players' lines up.
But
all four
that
players
is cool.
Different
now,
ones.
that is cool when they do that. But when you just show me the single shot again that I just watched, on all it is there's a line behind it, I could visualize that. Like, I could see that
It's
flight.
still pretty cool to see, like, what a disc does, though.
But I can see that
line.
without
I agree.
the line.
You should do it live.
The line, I feel like, almost takes away from what the disc does because you don't see the angle of the disc. It like, almost guards the angle of the disc. You're not seeing it flip up. You're just seeing kind of a more 2D object.
Okay, well, then you're contradicting yourself because that's why they would replay it so that you can watch it and be like, oh, wow, he threw that on a hyzer. And what did that disc just do? Oh, here's the line to show me what that disc just did.
No, I'm saying I could see all that in the first throw. I don't need it in the second one.
Just fell through the floor. But what I'm saying is if they did it in the first clip, I would almost like it more in the first clip to where that was such a sick shot, the way it banked around.
I don't know.
Put it in there.
I don't know that. I almost think that the reason the fall flight even exists is the idea comes from shot tracker in golf, and the only reason that exists is because you cannot see the golf ball fly, and they're not even tracking the actual golf ball.
I think it's cool to see the shape of the shot. Like seeing what the disc actually does is very hard to visualize sometimes when they're zooming in on the disc itself and the camera's moving back and forth. It's hard to visualize it. Once you see a full line, then it makes more sense.
There are times, but I feel like I was watching a compilation the other day on Joe Muzz, like the best shots of 2020, and there were so many fall flights, and almost all of them I was like, yeah, I just didn't need to see that shot again. Like I saw it the first time, it was an awesome shot, but like adding the fall flight line behind it and watching it exactly how it was again, it just didn't do much for me. That's my take. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I do
think when they show multiple shots layered on top of each other, then having the line there, like that's cool.
Yeah,
there are uses for that technology. It's just the most simple use of it does not do anything for me.
All I'm saying is the Pro Tour, and this kind of goes back to what you're saying, where the Pro Tour is holding all the cards right now.
Yeah,
and I don't think they realize they're holding all the cards, because if they said like you have to use our graphics package or you can't film, what do you think the companies are going to do? Just not show up?
Right.
Of course not. They're going to film because they need that. So then they use the graphics package. And now, instead of Jomez building Jomez's brand and Central Coast building Central Coast brand and all that, they're building the Pro Tour brand because it's Pro Tour coverage. It's a Pro Tour event. And again, like when we say stuff like that, I'm not coming after Jomez. What Jomez is doing is exactly what Jomez should be doing. I'm coming after the Pro Tour. What the Pro Tour is doing doesn't make any sense there. Because like, you're not allowing yourself to be branded across all these platforms with your coverage. You're just hoping they can see the Pro Tour branding in the background, whereas it should be screaming Pro Tour.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, like tell Jomez, make your graphics the way you want, but you have to use our logo and our colors.
I just don't like that idea of like. I just don't get why it's not regulated across it all.
Well, I mean, even if it's the exact same graphic, it's still gonna be
because then it also ensures the quality. They all do a great job, but then like even if we came in, let's say we did FPO2 coverage this year, and I'm not very good at graphics, and the Pro Tour hands me, here's our graphics package for replays, all of that. It ensures that even if my camera quality might not live up, the quality is going to be to a certain standard because the graphics package makes up a big portion of the quality.
That's valid.
And so that makes sure everything's up to the same standard.
But I also think it's a little irrelevant because like that, I don't know that they're ever going to let somebody do coverage.
GK Pro is relatively new, and they're, no offense to them, their graphics on like the bottom, the scorecard graphics and stuff aren't as good as Jomez and other ones.
That's valid.
So that way it regulates it across the board. Everyone's doing the same thing, and it's all pushing the Pro Tour.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's the best idea. I was just providing a compromise for a company like Jomez, where if they were to like, you know, be stubborn about it, you could just be like, well, fine, do a Jomez graphic, but at least use our colors and our logos.
I mean, you can, but again, that's exactly what you just said you would change. Like, this is where they would put their foot down and be like, okay, you don't want to do it? Fine, let's go Central Coast.
This is just a compromise. I hope they would.
On something like that, I don't see a point to compromise.
Well, they've been compromising by letting Jomez film their stuff, period, when they don't have to. So, like,
I agree. I'm just saying,
I don't know what
Central, like, on something like this, I feel like that's a very easy ask. It's like, hey, you know, we're providing this platform for you to monetize everything off of.
Yeah,
you got to use our graphics package.
Yes, and the next like 5 years of coverage,
it's definitely going to be interesting. I think a lot of people's feelings are going to get hurt.
Yeah,
because
big time.
I mean, I've read our comments when we talk about stuff.
People are going to make a lot of bold statements like, "I'm never playing the Pro Tour or whatever.
I'm never paying the Disc Golf Network for this."
And then guess what? They're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like we've had people come after.
It's like the USDGC. People freaked out about that paid coverage. Guess what? Y'all bought it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When the rubber meets the road, like it's like, well, you know, if I don't pay the $5, I'm not going to watch disc golf.
It's like when, you know, when companies have an embargo on a product like that, you gotta do it. It's like when Apple said, we're going to take the headphone jack out of our phones, and everybody's like, that's ridiculous. I'm never going to buy your stinking AirPods. And then guess what we all did? We all bought AirPods. We all bought those little adapters.
And we all loved it.
Yeah, and they took away all the ports from the laptops. We all bought the adapters.
I definitely think that when it happens, because here's the thing. We can talk about it all we want. We don't make the decisions. But I also hear a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. And, like, the stuff we're talking about a lot of times are pretty obvious moves. And I think a lot of people know it's obvious moves. It's just an uncomfortable decision to make or to talk about. And I hear it in the comments. I read your comments. I know you guys don't like a lot of what we say when it comes to coverage. Mm-hmm. But for the Pro Tour to be viable going forward, that's going to happen. It's going to. And, when it does, people are going to be upset. But change is inevitable, and it's going to happen. And when it happens, it's going to be for the betterment of the sport. That's one thing we have to remember, is that change, as much as it might be like, oh, that sucks. Now all the coverage is going to be crap. Well, no, it's not, first off. Secondly, it's going to be for the betterment of the sport. More people are going to be more players are going to be making better money. Money's going to be going to supporting the tour and all this stuff. It just makes and it's going to be a lot more of a sellable product when it's all under one roof.
Yeah.
It's going to happen eventually, and, I hope the disc golf community doesn't freak out, but I know they will. Now, speaking of the disc golf community, we're going to ask the same question about disc golf as a whole sport, the sport of disc golf, not really any organizations. What would you keep and what would you change?
This one, this is a pretty broad one, so I'll try to be pretty simple with it. Disc golf as a whole, what makes the sport so great is the accessibility. That is how cheap it is to get a disc, frankly, how easy it is to get a disc, and then how many courses there are and how most of the time they're free. That's the best part about disc golf. And that's what needs to not change. I'm not saying never pay to play courses, because I think there's a place for them, but I also love the accessibility of free courses, and as long as they're at public parks, which is typically the go-to move, then they will be free. And then as far as disc prices, they're going to go up as inflation goes up, but they're never going to be in a ridiculous price, because at the end of the day they're just plastic. So that's what I would keep.
If it ever got to a place where it was ridiculous pricing,
somebody would undercut.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
That's the great thing. And then as far as what I would get rid of with this, or what I would want to change, I guess, about the sport, this is a tough one as a whole. I would say, along with I would say there's a developing attitude within the sport of oh snap, disc golf is growing really fast. Maybe we should slow down the growth of the sport. And there's people that are starting this is the first time I've seen this, because I've been into disc golf for quite a long time. This is the first time I've ever seen people start talking about the sport's growing a little too fast. My local course is too crowded, that kind of mess, and that's really selfish and awful for the sport. And people are starting to get a little becoming what they basically living long enough to become the villain type scenario.
You die here or live long enough.
Right, where they're we don't like ball golf because it's so exclusive, and we won't let you play with us type of thing. And then I see people acting the same way in disc golf. So I've seen some hypocritical behavior.
I'll start with what I would change, because it was that.
Yeah.
I said I would change the gatekeeper mentality is what I called it. But basically, it's not seen everywhere, but it is beginning to be seen more and more, where they're cool with the growth of the sport as long as it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
But
right.
That doesn't make any sense, because it's going to. And I think one thing too is we need to be willing to change with the sport. As the sport grows, there's going to be changes that maybe not everyone likes. There's going to be changes that we won't like. And I think with growth comes change, but also with that change, the community needs to welcome it, see how it goes, and then we need to all as a community be willing to be yeah, that didn't work. Let's go back. Let's do this. Yeah. Let's do that. But we got to try it. You know what I mean? Because if we never try it, we'll never know. And, we obviously voice opinions, the fourth major. It's the same idea with that, right? That seems like it's going to suck. But what's going to happen is we're all going to show up. We're all going to cover it with as much as we possibly can. We're all going to talk about it and promote it. Because what if it doesn't suck?
Yeah, and if it does suck, we can change it.
Yeah, and then if it does, we're small enough that we just snap our fingers and it never happened. Yeah. No one will even know in the history. I mean, it'll always probably be one of those weird topics of did you know in 2022, won the weirdest major ever? You know what I mean? One of those videos in sports history. But we got to be willing for change to happen, even when it's change that we might not like. Yeah. I'm all for voicing opinions and letting people know hey, I don't like it. But I don't like the idea of being we need to slow the sport because, there's too many people coming in the sport that are blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And one area we saw it was with that whole Brody's sign thing. And like that's one thing too that I don't like the idea of is grouping new players into a category,
right,
and using it negatively. Right. That is never a good idea.
The whole idea of like new players. Oh, new players don't know etiquette. Did you know etiquette when you were a new player?
None of us
did. Like guess how you teach them? By playing with them and by telling them, hey, by the way, like when you're playing, like don't do this, don't do that. I mean, when I started playing ball golf, like that's how it was. Like there's weird etiquette in all forms of golf, like walking, like in ball golf, walking in front of somebody's line on the green. Like you don't do that. You walk around it. Like that's something you learn though. And like, yeah, that is so rich for people to be like, they don't know how to treat the course and you know, play by the rules. Well, they're going to learn.
Yeah, they're either
like
going to learn.
Everybody does.
Or you're going to make them never want to play disc golf again because they're going to be like, those bunch of jerks. And what's funny is the thing that I was about to say I love about disc golf is the same people that are doing this sometimes are the same people that if you ask them about the disc golf community would talk about how great the community is and how welcoming it is. Yeah. Which is kind of what you said. But that is something that is also, on the flip side of this coin, very true. Right. And that's something that I think is what I wouldn't change about disc golf, is the small community feel of the sport locally. I think that is crucial. It's just like in anything, the more people you can make feel a part of growing the sport, the better it's going to be. Because then if you get all these new players and you're able to get some of them out to a work day at a course, right? And at that work day at the course, they're cutting in this path or something, or like cutting into the hillside to make it more easily accessible to walk up, or putting stairs in on a course or something like that. Then they're proud of that. Now every time they come back to the course, they're like, hey, you see those stairs?
Yeah.
I cut that in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're picking up sticks. They're doing whatever. They now feel ownership of the sport. That's how you grow the sport on a local level, because that's what's going to be crucial as the sport goes forward, is keeping that small community feel where we as players are the ones investing into these courses and putting our time and sweat equity into it, is going to make it where we treat them better, we keep it up more and stuff like that, to where we don't have to rely on it turning into a pay-to-play only type thing. Because that's what would happen, is if we push all these people away and they never become part of local clubs and weeklies and, you know, work days at courses, the only way courses are going to be able to be kept up is if we pay someone to. Yeah. And that's where pay-to-play comes from. So I like the small community feel on a local level, and I think that's something that even if the sport gets massive, keeping that small community locally is going to be crucial for the betterment of the sport. Yeah. Now, this is going to go kind of backtrack a little bit to the media topic, because there's this new YouTube channel. I don't want to say new because I don't actually know how new they are, but they're kind of new to the sport. And it's called Small Bore Outlaw. I believe I wrote that right. But basically, they're cutting up coverage into highlights. And now they've gotten big enough that they're monetizing that through ad revenue. So there was a post on Facebook that brought this topic up. It's getting a good amount of views and stuff like that. And they're saying, like, is this right? Does this fall under fair use? First off, super gray area within the fair use, because you can look at it as like a mashup thing where they're editing and changing it. So legally, there's probably never going to be action taken, because it would require like Joe Mezzi, someone taking them to court, and then all the legal fees and stuff that go into that. But why I wanted to bring it up is because on said Facebook post, we had Paul Macbeth comment, and he was quoted saying this: "But just think of all the free exposure these media teams are getting. It's a similar struggle to that the players deal with zero of them getting YouTube revenue from the videos posted on these channels. We just hear how we get exposure, and that should be okay with us. I'm not complaining in any way, just sharing my thoughts on the topic." Obviously, that got the crowd going a little bit. People started commenting back and forth. Later, Paul comments again and says, "So to summarize all these comments, it looks like media outlets should be paying to cover the events or splitting revenue, and that money should be going back into the events. This would be indirectly going to players by making larger purses, which means more touring players." So this is why I kind of stopped earlier, because I think this is going to go right alongside that, right? The current model of disc golf is you have Central Coast or whoever paying to cover the Pro Tour. They are paying now. That's a newer change. Used to not pay. They're paying to cover the Pro Tour. Okay. And then the Pro Tour is allowed to sell ads against that coverage. Okay. But they're selling them for a few $100 or whatever. They are able to sell some ads. Okay. That's as much as the Pro Tour gets. So the Pro Tour, let's say they're getting, you know, maybe each week a few $1,000s from that. Then these companies are able to take that. If they want to sell it to an outside sponsor, let's say that Red Bull came in to Gatekeeper and was like, "Hey, I'm going to buy $100,000 for a years-long sponsorship." That's going straight to Gatekeeper's pocket. Then what they're also doing is Central Coast, whoever, is monetizing it with ad revenue, which disc golf, revenue per 1,000 views is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And so they're monetizing it, and then they're taking these clips and monetizing it, and they're doing all of this, and then they have Patreon and monetizing it. This is all stuff that is valid work they're doing. They should get paid for that. I'm not discriminating that at all. But what's creating a weird scenario is like there's all this money in the sport, but none of it's going to the players.
Yeah.
So now what it's creating is realistically, I don't know these numbers for sure, so do not quote me on this, but more than likely on a very regular basis, you probably have cameramen for Jomez or some of these other companies that are making more money than the players they're covering on a yearly basis.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and that might be like, okay, so what? Well, just picture any other sport where, and you can't really use a big name in the sport, but we could use like a Ricky Fowler. Just picture
Pick's a very big name.
I'm saying in disc golf, who would be the disc golf Ricky Fowler?
Like Kevin Jones. But
okay, maybe we should go a little smaller.
I mean, you could just say average PGA Tour golfer.
So imagine an average PGA Tour golfer, right? And then your granddad's sitting there covering him. I don't know why I picked granddad. Your dad is sitting there as the video guy next to him, and your dad's making more money than him.
Yeah.
Off of him hitting the golf ball. That doesn't line up. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So that's basically what Paul was saying here is like, right now, media teams, whenever this gets brought up, everyone's saying like, well, you should just be thankful for all the exposure you got for being on that coverage. You know what I mean? And then Paul's kind of rebuttal is like, well, the only reason I'm getting exposure is because they're covering me.
Right.
I'm playing, and he was very clear to say like, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just telling you my thoughts. What is the future going to look like with that? Do you think that this model, because it's only going to get bigger. These media companies are only going to keep getting bigger and bigger off of coverage. Do you think it's a bubble that's about to burst, or what are we about to see?
Well, yeah, it's really odd because I never really thought about it that way with like some of the Jomez guys or the Central Coast guys are probably, especially like the guys in charge, are making more money than like the disc golfers when the disc golfers are the ones creating the product for them to make the money off of. So it's a really weird dynamic, and it's like coverage has become this sort of money vacuum in the sport to where the reason being is because all they do is coverage. So it's not like if the Pro Tour was doing all the coverage and it's all under one roof to where like the players are getting paid out of like the Pro Tour's pocket, and so like that money can cycle through that way. Jomez essentially makes the money, and like I said, they might be paying a little bit, but realistically, like the players are not getting any money off of like the money that these post-production companies are able to earn. So it's like a money vacuum for their product, right? It's taking away money that's in the sport of disc golf, and it's being taken out and only given to those companies. It doesn't actually go back into the players or even into like, the PDGA or whatever else can like help grow the sport. So
and again, this is something that if I'm in Jomez's shoes or Central Coast shoes,
it's not on them.
I'm doing that. Yeah. I'm doing the exact same thing because why the heck not?
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm making a product. I'm monetizing that product. I'm taking it. Like it's my money.
It's different too.
It's on the Pro Tour and the National Tour.
Right.
They're the ones that should be saying, I don't know what it needs to be, but there needs to be some type of deal of like, for this coverage, maybe instead of a flat fee, it's we get 50% of the ad revenue, or we get some type of ad revenue.
I think it literally just comes down to them needing to set their prices higher, because when you look at other professional sports, I'm not sure how it works for like PGA Tour golf. Well, I am in a way. They bid on events. First of all, like it'll be like majors, for example, on the PGA Tour are event specific. Like Fox a few years back bought the US Open until they bought it for like 10 years. And that was like, it was on a different channel for the longest time. But like they bid to win that event, and they paid copious amount of money. I mean, I think that, like the Turner, whatever it is, that's like CBS and TBS and all that, that do March Madness. I think they paid like $1 billion for their latest bid to win March Madness.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if it should go to a bid system.
I think
Like,
it
in a
has.
bidding war.
I think it has to, but like, because I don't think the problem is that the money that they then get isn't directly going back to the players. I think it's just not, the Pro Tour isn't making enough money off of that system. If that's a system they're going to use, we're like, yeah, we'll like bid it, let Jomez bid on it, and they can win it and do whatever they want with it, because like obviously CBS, if they have March Madness, they're going to make money off the commercials. But what happens is like that, like the a good example of this is in soccer. If teams get promoted to the Premier League, like the highest tiered league, they call it the richest game in sports. The championship game in the second tier that gets you to the Premier League, because the team that wins that gets is going to be another like $300 million richer the next year because of the TV deal that you get for being in the Premier League. Because that revenue that comes in from whoever has the like NBC and Sky Sports that owns like the television rights, it's the profits that are spread amongst the teams. So even though it's going out to those separate companies, there's such a large amount of money, like they're valuing their product high enough that they can take that money and still effectively add it into the sport.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like there's two ways to go about it. They could just put everything under one roof and it's just a very simple in and out, like it comes in directly to us and we put it right into our product, or they could just need to make it a bidding war or just set their price high enough to where it's a lot of money.
Start
and
the
like,
price real high.
Right. Like those companies can still survive, but like you're going to have to pay for what you're getting.
Yeah. Start the price high and just see, because that's the thing too is
it's so hard when we don't know the numbers though.
Well, it's also disc golf. Disc golf doesn't know what anything's worth.
Right. Like,
I can say that. Like even in talking with the Pro Tour, I've been talking about like valuations of stuff for different advertising things.
Yeah.
And they'll literally say like, we're still trying to figure out what some of these assets are worth.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things too is like, it's worth what someone will pay for it. So if you put it out there of like season long coverage is $60,000.
Right.
Sure, no one might jump on it, but do that in November and say next season's lead card coverage worth $60,000.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to see them put it up for so much that they can literally take add like 10,000 to every single purse out of that coverage.
That's what I'm saying is like start it there, and if you put if you say lead card coverage for every event is $60,000 and Jomez eats it like that, then you're like,
right,
holy cow! Next year we're doing it 100.
We just don't know like how much can Jomez or the other big dogs, like how much can they afford? Like how much profit are they making?
Because if the worst case scenario is you put it at $60,000, no one buys it, then you're like, okay, well maybe it's only worth 30.
Yeah.
And then they buy it. And you're like, okay, well there's the starting value. It's gonna be worth more next year.
The other thing,
just keep going.
The other big thing is too, like if you were to do a bidding system, in my mind, nobody can outbid Jomez. That's the other thing. Like, so like the price won't get driven up a ton. Because when you have CBS and NBC and Fox all bidding on stuff, like
everyone
ESPN,
can outbid everyone.
Like the Super Bowl is going to go up to hundreds of millions or billions of dollars.
Yes and no, because you also have to think, if I'm sitting back and I'm Central Coast, for instance, and I'm looking at it, I know the view difference between a chase card and a lead card is going to be massive. Mm-hmm. And I know my monetization efforts for a lead card is going to be a lot bigger, to where, maybe it's a payment schedule that it's $60,000, but you pay it throughout the year quarterly or something, to where
you're making the money as it comes in.
It's a big risk. It's a big risk, but you do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A bidding system like that, it could just destroy post coverage companies.
It could,
because they could have to just go all in, and it's tricky, but that's like the other alternative to not just bringing it all under and like still getting the players money and getting the tour money from the coverage. Yeah.
Now this is a first for our podcast ever. I just got a text, all caps, breaking news, get it on the podcast. So I don't know if by the time this podcast drops, you guys are going to know this or not, or if we are actually about to break this and leak it to the world. But I asked, shooting the podcast right now, can I talk about this? And I got a response, yeah, breaking news. So Nico is officially out of the All-Star weekend. So the new pairings are Paul McBeth and James Conrad sneaking in there. So now it's McBeth and Conrad, which makes Calvin Heimberg and Garrett Gerthy, Ricky and Kevin, and now Eagle and Chris Dickerson.
Well, Eagle and Chris were still...
They're the only ones that stay the same. Because it was Nico and Ricky, Calvin and Kevin.
You know what's crazy is
Paul and Garrett.
I was literally wondering. I was hoping. I was like, man, you know who's a guy that I really want to see in the All-Star weekend that isn't there is James, because I want to see him throw.
This is going to be huge. So now
MVP.
that James Conrad's in there with his, I'd assume his MVP bag.
Honestly, if I'm the DGPT, like I'm a little shook that we just promoted this whole thing and then didn't confirm our players, or maybe they did and then they
maybe
bailed.
they did. Nico dropped. I don't know.
But I'm also like, hey, we just got James Conrad, who people are very high on right now, so that's not bad, you know.
Yeah, and I also think
Who else got added in?
It was just Conrad.
It was just
Conrad got added
Conrad
in.
for Nico.
It just shifted up the whole.
Okay, it was Conrad for
thing.
Nico. Okay.
Yeah, but what it allowed is
The other team shifted.
Macbeth looks a lot stronger in my opinion with Conrad.
Talk about putting. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now if we redid our segment last week, I'm picking the Macbeth Conrad team.
Yeah, that's a good team now.
Because no offense to Garrett, but I feel like Conrad's a better player over Double G. Last year he was not. Let's get out of the way.
That gyro technology.
He wasn't. But now with gyro, he's going to be throwing 10% farther, man. And no, honestly.
How about that Kevin and Ricky team?
Kevin and Ricky's also a big one.
That's dirty.
You know, it really shook things up.
Because Kevin's better than Nico. So that team just got better.
It shook a lot of things up.
Ooh.
It got interesting. But yeah, so that might be old news by the time this drops. But there's a little Foundation exclusive for you. We got our reporters on the ground.
Yeah, I'm getting like 2 calls from Paul Macbeth in my pocket.
Yeah,
like,
well, I was sitting here. My phone was sitting here.
I saw it was Brody.
It was Brody was calling me, which he calls me regularly. So I was just like, whatever. And then my wife texted me and said, just got a call from Hannah. I think you need to pick up the call. You know, something just happened with the All-Star
they're really
weekend.
trying to get that to us.
And I was like, well, I don't know. Brody also left a 30-second audio message. So there might be a bigger deal of maybe there's a reason why Nico dropped out that we're missing. I don't know, but...
Interesting.
We just learned that. And while we're on the breaking news trend, pretty big Foundation announcement.
News.
You might be looking at this, and you might look down if you're watching us on YouTube. Nothing's changed to you audio listeners. Sorry about that. If you're watching us on YouTube, though, you might be looking down and say, why on earth does it say Foundation Podcasts instead
Plural.
of Grip Locked? Why is that a plural? Why is there an S after the word podcast? Because... Foundation Disc Golf, we are stoked to announce and welcome onto the team Nick Carl and Matt Graham of the Nick and Matt Show. Yep. They're going to be announcing it on their podcast as well. If you don't listen to the Nick and Matt Show, it's basically what you guys have been asking for us to start doing. Instead of us doing it and adding it to this podcast, we decided to bring on someone who's already doing it and doing a really good job at it onto the team. So the Nick and Matt Show is more of like an interview based podcast to a certain degree, in the fact that basically they have a guest on every week, they talk to them, they interview them, and then they're also a live show, so you can kind of interact with people in the comments and stuff like that. It's a really good compliment show, we feel, to our style, and it'll kind of give you a complete podcast experience. Everything that you would want is going to be found in one of those 2 shows. We're stoked to have them. We got a lot of different plans and visions for the future with their show and the Foundation Podcast Network, branded here on YouTube as Foundation Podcasts. If you're an audio listener, their shows will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that. It actually already is if you want to go ahead and check them out. But we're definitely stoked to be bringing that under the Foundation umbrella and be growing their podcast alongside ours and see what opportunities this kind of brings. But definitely something that's exciting. And with that being said, it's time to jump into our fan favorite segment, the one and only Trevor's Trivia. What do you got for me this week, Trevor?
So we have 2 separate little games today. We're going to do a Who Am I first, and then we're going to do a This Year in Disc Golf.
Nice.
So the rule with the Who Am I, I'm going to be very careful about explaining rules these days because last time you got triggered. So the rule for this is you're able to make an educated guess as soon as you have one. Don't just throw a name out there, but like I'll read off the hints one by one, and as soon as you like have an idea, like okay, then make your guess. So I'm just
guessing the player.
You get one guess. So like don't guess till you're confident.
Right. Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right. So we're going to start off. I am from Perry, Oklahoma. I've been a pro since 2015. I have 9 career wins in 148 career events. My best finish on the Pro Tour was 10th last season. I have $68,000 in career earnings. I played in every Pro Tour event last season. I had 0 wins last year. Pro Tour, or anything else. I'm rated 1023. Any idea yet?
No.
I'll give you the next one. This one will probably give it to you. I was top 10 at the Pro Tour finale last season.
I'm hung up on Oklahoma. Top 10 at the Pro Tour finale. Who were at the 10? Oh, Austin Hannum.
Yep.
Oh, duh.
Yeah.
I knew he was from Oklahoma. For some reason,
I always worry that you're gonna you're very good for some reason knowing where people are from, and I always worry I'm gonna be like Perry, Oklahoma, and you're like, oh, it's Austin Hannum. I'm like, you did that to me one time, and I was like, ah.
For some reason, I was trying to think of pro. Isn't Jen Allen from Oklahoma?
I think she's from Texas, or she lives in Texas, maybe. Or maybe she just plays Texas events.
For some reason, when you said Oklahoma, I immediately was like, oh, it's Jennifer Allen, and then you just kept reading. You got to 68,000 in earnings. I was like, hold up, and you said only 9 career wins and turned pro in 2015. And I was like, none of that is Jennifer Allen. And then you said 1023 rated, and it really threw me for a loop because my head was in FPO the whole time. Yeah. Interesting.
All right.
Okay. Well, I kind of got it.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. All right. So we're gonna do this year in disc golf. So you're gonna guess what year this was based on these clues. Now this time,
2012.
No.
Can you imagine?
Just don't even do that because that'd break my little heart. I just want to play my little game, huh? It's not. So this time I'm going to read all 5 of the clues, and then you can make your guess.
Yep.
So, first clue. Ken Climo finished 9th at Worlds.
Okay.
Barry Schultz won the USDGC. Juliana Korver won Worlds. The Buzz became PDGA approved, and Nate Sexton won Junior Worlds.
The Buzz is the key in that. I'm going to go 2008. Is that right?
No.
Oh.
2008? The Buzz coming out in 2008?
Didn't they just come out with 10-year buzzes? Like a few years ago?
Are you...
Is it like not...
You think Barry Schultz won a USDGC in 2008?
I don't know. The Buzz is what I got hung up on in my head.
You think Sexton won a Junior Worlds in 08?
I didn't pay attention to nothing but the Buzz.
I think the Sexton...
Okay, so 98.
No, 2003.
I was 5 years off.
That's a lot of years. That's a lot of years.
You were just talking about
don't listen to that. Don't even listen to that.
You just came at me like I was going to it was 1985.
You thought the Buzz has only been around since 08? Like you think Nate Doss wasn't winning his 2005 or 6 world title with a Buzz in his hand? You got to be crazy for that.
I could have swore I was playing disc golf when the 10-year Buzz came out. It must have been a 15-year Buzz, or maybe the 10-year Zone's what I'm thinking of. But I was 5 years off.
Well, if you really were thinking about it, then you should have known that Nate Sexton could not have been a junior in 2008. Like that was really your hit.
Yeah, I already had my mind set.
Worlds
I had my mind set well before then.
Because I was shocked when that came out of my head.
I thought I nailed it with that response. But you just acted like it was 1970s.
No, that's criminal. The comments will back me up. That one's criminal. That one was criminal. Last week, whatever. This one, that was criminal. And you deserve to be roasted.
I was 5 years off.
Like, can somebody meme him for that? Like, there's got to be something there. I'm not funny enough.
I'm finding the 10-year Buzz. There's a 10-year Buzz. I'm Googling it. I know.
Yeah, and it came out in 2013, man.
No, maybe there was a Ledgestone 10-year Buzz. There was some 10-year Buzz that came out recently, and I'm going to find it.
It couldn't have been a 15-year Buzz.
Elite 10-year Buzz. News from Discraft. It was in 2013 that one came out. I'm gonna search Ledgestone. I'm gonna put Ledgestone next to it.
When that makes sense.
I'm gonna put Ledgestone next to it. Maybe
let's 3 plus 10.
I'm gonna search Ledgestone 10-year Buzz. There was definitely.
I think Nate Doss won like 3 world titles before 2008, and you're telling me that guy was just throwing Hornets? Like
he actually did throw.
He did, lot of but he also had his name on the Buzz.
Okay, I mean, someone will know. There is a 10-year Buzz that recently came out, and...
Yeah, and it came out in your dream last night. And then you woke up and realized that you're crazy.
No, I mean, someone in the a collector will know. What was the first Ledgestone? Because there was definitely a 10-year Buzz.
What are you talking about? Are you sure they didn't... I think there was a Ledgestone Buzz that maybe looked like the 10-year logo.
No, they ran a freaking 10-year Ledgestone Buzz. I know that now.
All right, well, we'll find it later.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You got it wrong.
I was only 5 years off, though. That's not bad.
When disc golf has only really been first of all, the USDGC era started in like 99, and that's like really the start of like disc golf relevance. So there's not even that big of a window, like 20 years. In a 20-year window of relevance, 5 years is an eternity.
Next week, I'm running Trevor's Trivia.
No, you're not.
And I'm coming up with a criminal game, and I'm going to laugh at you so hard when you're...
You just like cross out the name, but Hunter's Trivia.
When you're a point off on the ratings, when I have to ask you something, I'm like, oh, what an idiot! You thought he was 1049, he was 1050.
That was
Dummy.
Not the point. That was not, you're missing the point. You might make that call. Let me paint you in a scenario. You get fired and you're homeless. What do you do to survive?
No, I got another topic in between this and make that call.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a fun one, just kind of, I don't know. I thought it'd be fun to talk about.
Hit me.
So basically, we talked about it a little bit. This is what gave me the idea.
Okay.
Someone actually might have brought it up, but regardless, what athlete, any athlete at all from any sport, do you think both on MPO and FPO could come in and make the biggest playing impact? Who do you think would have the best chance to come in and be a good pro from any other sport out there? Right. And how good would they be?
Well,
MPO, FPO.
So there's basically two schools of thought. We talked about the whole tennis thing yesterday. Like, is Serena Williams going to be nasty because, like, there's a backhand and forehand motion? So, like, I could see that being a thing. And Serena Williams is super athletic. So I like the whole tennis player route there. Yeah, I like the whole Serena Williams idea. We'll go for her for FBO. But, like, I think you could give her 5 years to train at disc golf, and she's not beating Paige Pierce.
No,
I don't think so. I don't think it's quite the same. And on the on the men's side, like, you could go the tennis thing again. You'd be like, oh yeah, like Federer or Nadal or Djokovic.
One thing you got to think about too is their age.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Well, so yeah, like let's just say you take some young gun, female tennis player. Similar mechanic.
Was Venus younger or older?
Older.
Dang it.
There's some. I think Sloane Stevens is her name. She's like a younger women's tennis player. That's right. Good. But men, you could take baseball. Like, if you're a middle infielder, you do a lot of sidearm throws. So, like, you could probably figure out a sidearm pretty quick. And the baseball swing has some comparisons to a backhand. So, like, that would be, and it's already a throwing sport. So, if you take, like, a pitcher who has absolute cannon for an arm, give me, like, a Noah Syndergaard, somebody that's throwing, like, 96, 97, and is pretty athletic, and give them a Frisbee. Yeah, you give a guy like that a couple years. But even like a guy who's throwing, I mean, I don't know how much arm strength with baseball like translates to disc golf. Like, I've seen Paul throw a baseball, and like he throws pretty hard. I bet in his prime he could break 80 miles an hour. He's certainly not throwing 96. Like, there's certainly nobody in disc golf that's throwing a baseball 96 miles an hour. So, like, is there... Like, I didn't even think about that. Is there, like, the realm of possibility that, like, discs can just be thrown further than anything we ever imagined? Although David Wiggins, that dude threw violently. I bet you that guy threw a baseball further than 90 miles an hour.
But he didn't really throw forehand that much, did he?
No, but I bet you, based on just watching his arm speed, I bet that guy could have thrown a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
I mean, I've seen...
In any case, though, I don't...
There's a local guy who played, like, minor league baseball. And I've seen him
I've seen his overhand.
His overhand with an epic goes like 600 feet, but I've also seen him break 500 some feet multiple times on forehands.
Yeah. I don't know how much of a I'm just saying,
he was a minor league baseball. I don't even know if he's a pitcher. I don't know what position he played.
I think he played third base. I'm just saying, I don't know where I heard that.
Why did you know that?
I'm just saying that I don't know how much, like, I think when I look at, like, if you bring a baseball player in, the main thing I think about is arm strength, and I don't know how much of a separator just being able to throw maybe 50 to 100 feet further than, like, the further throwers in our sport could be. So I don't think either way it's going to be super relevant. Like, if they were really young and they started playing, yeah, they could probably get to a top player in the sport, but, like, it's not, like, going to be some instant impact thing where they pick up a disc and a year later they're, like, winning worlds.
Yeah. I think tennis is the way to go for three things.
Give me your reasons.
First off, backhand, forehand already exists. So you have both motions.
Yeah.
Baseball, you don't have both motions.
I said the baseball swing is closer to the backhand.
But it's not, because if I'm a righty and I swing...
Oh, true. I'm thinking, I swing lefty, throw right hand, so I'm
you're
thinking
just a freak.
Incorrectly. A lot of people do that.
Really?
Yeah, it's very common in baseball.
That seems weird, because to me, I'm thinking, like, This is not, because that's like, I know a lot of players who are lefty backhand, righty forehand, because that's the mechanics from baseball.
Yeah, that's super weird.
Because that's just what they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But tennis, you already got the forehand and the backhand down, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, you already have forehand and backhand touch, because you got to control the speed of the ball with
That's
it coming
a good
in.
point.
So you already have the speed control,
I
which
like
I think
the
is
idea.
more. I think that's more crucial than raw strength.
You're right.
And I don't remember my third one.
Doesn't
But
matter.
regardless, I'm going Serena Williams, and
Serena's old though. You said we need younger players.
I don't know enough tennis players to know.
I don't know either.
I didn't actually look that much into it because my sheet here literally says outside athletes, and that's it for this topic.
Very prepared.
So I'm going Serena Williams and what's his first name? Nadal. Rafael Nadal.
Rafa Nadal.
I only know that because I used to play that Top Tennis, whatever it was, video game. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Fun game. Real fun game.
Yeah.
I definitely think tennis, though, is the way over baseball.
It might be. Because there's a lot of wrist action in the tennis swing as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be it.
There's a lot. There's a lot
could be
that
the moves.
comes with tennis.
We may be on to something there.
Yeah. We just need to go.
Well, there has been guys with racquetball backgrounds that get into disc golf.
Racquetball's not really big enough that there's going to be like... If
Right.
there's,
That's
if there's
what I'm saying,
an
like,
elite
there's something
racquetball
there.
athlete, they're probably playing tennis, I feel like.
Interesting.
I mean, am I wrong?
I don't
Like,
know.
if you
I
have
don't,
the skill...
I don't know, but you may have just offended somebody.
I might have. But if you have the skill of, like, Roger Federer, you're probably not playing racquetball. I feel like there's a lot more money in tennis.
Well, I think racquetball may just be like, what if you just grow up playing racquetball? Like, that's your thing. And, like, maybe in certain countries it's more popular. Like, I don't know.
And I feel like it's the same thing as disc golf. It's like super, super elite athletes, like a LeBron James.
Well, right. That's like...
If he, like, really loved disc golf, but he can make billions of dollars in basketball.
Well, that's... yeah.
You know, sorry.
That's the whole argument, too, why, like, U.S. has always been so far behind in soccer. Is like, our best athletes aren't playing soccer. They're playing
Well,
football and basketball and baseball.
Yeah.
And hockey, even.
Yeah, because that's where the money is. I mean, even I have a cousin, second cousin, because Trevor's going to correct me, in the NFL. He liked basketball more in high school. But
football's where the money was.
No, football.
Scholarship.
He was better at football. 'Cause he was just a freak athlete. He was a better football quarterback than he was a basketball point guard.
To have.
And so he went to Tech as a quarterback, and now he's a tight end because he's built like a hoss.
In the NFL.
Yeah. Oh.
Give some credit.
I don't know. I was just saying, like he liked basketball more when he was coming out of high school.
The moral of the story is Hunter has a second cousin in the NFL.
Moral of the story is somewhere deep in my genes there are athletic abilities that just didn't go to me. Okay, so all right, it's time to wrap up the show. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, but it's time for the one and only make that call. And this one, I'm 99% sure you're gonna know.
You'd be surprised.
I'm gonna give you a very vague thing to see if you know the actual rule.
Okay.
Just because if I gave you the scenario, you'd be able to figure this rule out. But it was a pretty interesting scenario that someone messaged me, and I need to start flagging these messages or something because guess what? I couldn't find it. He messaged me like a week ago.
You never can.
And I think it was on Facebook. Well, by me, I mean the foundation page. And we get so many messages between Instagram and Facebook that it got lost. It got lost in there.
See it.
So, again, let me know in the comments if it was you. Don't take credit if it wasn't you.
Just don't do it.
But anyway, so basically here's your scenario. We're going to paint you into a tournament. Why not?
Yes.
USDGC Hole 17. I know you're not sponsored by
I've
this
played that
company.
island at least 3 or 4 times. I've never hit it.
I know you're not sponsored by this company, but this disc just makes the most sense for it. So you're sponsored by Innova now.
Okay.
In this scenario.
Yikes.
You got a KC Pro Rock in your hand.
Okay.
It's a oddly frigid.
Wish I had a truth. Go ahead.
It's an oddly frigid USDGC. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And you throw your KC Pro Rock dead in the center of the chains. Not only do you explode the basket, but you explode the disc.
I know
Some pieces land in the basket. What's the ruling?
Biggest piece.
Okay, yeah. So the biggest piece is on the floor. It wasn't an ace. I knew you'd know the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was the question. Is their scenario was, I don't know if it actually happened to them or they just thought it up, but the disc exploded. All the pieces fell through the basket. So the disc went in, went through the bottom.
But it's where but it has to come to rest.
It has to come to rest and be supported by the basket.
That is a darn shame.
It's got to be supported by the basket.
Yeah.
Is the key.
I mean, that's almost a cooler story, though.
Yeah.
So there's that.
But, if the biggest piece was in the basket, it's an ace. But if the biggest piece is on the floor, wouldn't that really suck if like your disc broke almost perfectly in half and the smaller half stayed and the bigger half
Imagine if it was like so close that like they had to like measure
Oh,
it.
you lost the tournament, by the way. By a stroke. He sucks.
That wasn't even relevant to the story.
No, but you needed the ace to stick to win.
That's funny.
There you go.
Oh, by the way, you lost. And you needed that to pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
It's all over.
All right. If you want to co-host this show with me, please leave an application. Email your resume to support@foundationdiscs, and Trevor will pick one of you.
I'll probably delete it.
No, that's going to wrap it up for this show. In case you forgot, we are super excited to be welcoming the Nick and Matt Show to the Foundation Podcast Network and YouTube channel here. Go give them a listen. They'll be live. If you're watching this on Thursday, they will be live on their own channel tonight. They'll be making the same announcement. You can go hype them up in the chat, though. And then moving forward, they're going to take the next week off, I believe, and starting the following week, they'll be going live on our channel, Foundation Podcast. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss that. And next week, we're going to have the All-Star results to talk about, and we're going to have a tournament to preview. We have done it, Trevor. The off-season's over. Well done.
Wow.
Well done. We've made it. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us through this off-season. We got a lot of great content planned based around the season. We can't wait to see what 2021 has in store, and we will talk to you all next week.